seeing a lot of the older generation that just spoke fluently. My grandparents, they spoke all the time in the house, but they only spoke amongst each other. And they wanted to keep it the novelty to themselves. But guess what? Now they passed, and where's it at? It's stopped with them. So if we hold on to that mindset, it's never going to grow.
Right.
And I think we're at a place for a lot of people, a lot of my generation and a lot of younger people, that they don't feel connected to it because it's on such a pedestal and it's out of reach so much that they think of it as just novelty, as just tourism.
Dude, so I'm really glad to have you back in here. First time we had an interview with you was from a different podcast, and it was just audio. I was just kind of getting this thing started.
Mm-hmm.
Now I got you back. And in the meantime, it was right when
Hoping
Heaven's Got a Kitchen
man.
came out. So what's been going on since then, man? I've seen you sporadically coming in through this building every now and then.
Yeah, well, once the record came out, it was a big switch for me to just play music full time. I'd been working at the bike shop for 10 years, you know. I had only had a bicycle to get around for a decade. So working in a bike shop kind of went hand in hand with that. And around that time, I'd bought my first vehicle ever, which is an old Ford F-150 van. And It was huge and disgusting on gas mileage. But it was a way to emphasize, to encourage, like, getting to gigs and stuff. And I think that helped me out to kind of get to and fro for the record. And then it became a point where I started gigging full time after the album was out, and I knew that I'd end up having to travel further. So you
were working at the bike shop downtown Lafayette, and were you only gigging in places around where you could bike?
Yeah, exactly. For 10 years, I stayed within the realm of biking distance.
So downtown Freetown, that's about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, there's some pictures of me going to shows where I'm like carrying all my guitars and my amp on my backpack and stuff. And
oh my gosh,
those were really amazing days, but certainly kept me here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and after releasing the record, it was like, oh, okay, well, I can't just keep this here. I have to go somewhere else. I have to keep going on, you know.
So whenever you release something like that, you know, I see you starting to get, at the time, popping up gigs in like Texas and other states. And then of course, like, just kind of started talking about you just coming back recently from Canada. How do you start getting those gigs outside? I mean, shoot, you're so used to just a certain square mileage.
Yeah, exactly.
Much less the whole like parish of Lafayette. How do you get out of it?
There's a number of different ways. I think, you know, staying in the hub city for a decade allowed me to collect a lot of resources and network in that regard. Sometimes it was like cashing in on favors that were 5 years in the works, 10 years in the works. It was like, oh yeah, you know, one day I'll make it to Colorado, or one day I'll be out on the West Coast in California. And so really it was trying to maybe follow up with those people and be like, yeah, hey, I know it's been 10 years, but I finally got this record out and I'm ready to start making a move, you know? So that the whole record was Hoping Heaven Got a Kitchen was a big, big deal for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just reached out. Sometimes it was a lot of cold calls, but mostly it had been through just networking with other artists. And Louisiana, Lafayette particularly, is kind of a destination spot. So you'll get people from all over the country who come here wanting to explore the music and the musical scene. And I just would network with them and say, you know, I want to come where you are.
Yeah, I know you've done a lot of like singer-songwriter rounds and things like that. Yeah. Is that another way to?
Yeah, those are
at festivals specifically.
Yeah, festivals, but songwriter rounds. You know, I did a lot of Instagram stalking of people that were just playing the same music that I was, trying to follow up like their strategy, and then also see, you know, the places that they were playing, because if there was an opportunity for them, then it was more than likely that there was probably an opportunity for me to explore the venue and say, hey, my name is Dustin Gaspard, this is what I do, type deal.
What's going down the pipe right now? What are you kind of looking at?
Oh man, I'm always like,
Well, first off, let me backtrack. So you were just in Canada. What were you in Canada for?
I'd gone up to Canada because, well, I think the way that it all begins is in 2023, I I had applied for the Art Spark grant through Acadiana Center for the Arts, which is a grant that funds artistic, let's just say in general, the arts in Acadiana. And my project that I pitched to them was creating a folk bilingual Americana album that would tell the story of my Acadian ancestors from Nova Scotia. My family, on my mother's side, the Légers, are original Acadians from that area who were part of Le Grand Arrangement and the whole Cajun story and their exile. So I was interested in that because my grandfather, who spoke French, it was like his dream to be able to explore there, and he never got to make that happen. And I wanted to learn more about my Acadian heritage and my Cajun heritage. And there's I wanted to be able to have a foot on the ground here, like something that really planted my legacy, and to create a record where I would sing bilingually. Uh, in my idea, in my mind, was a way that I'd be able to do that. And it was going to be kind of like a nurturing experience for me to learn about myself, you know. So that's where it started in 2023. I actually got the grant, and we had this idea where I would actually tour by boat because my ancestors toured by boat and kind of tore this record. Well, funding couldn't really stretch that far, and in translation, what I ended up doing was just taking a trip to Canada to go play some festivals to play these songs that I had written for this ACA record. And in the meantime, I also was awarded a scholarship to go study French at Saint Anne, the French immersion school in Nova Scotia. So it all became a giant pilgrimage to perform these songs, to talk about my music, and to, reconnect. None of my Leger family has been there since we were exiled in the 1700s. So it was a full circle moment for me to be a part of it all, to perform these songs, and then to learn the language in the place where we were from. So
Yeah.
that's why I went back up there.
Okay. And how long were you there?
I was there. I left in June. I left at the end of June, and let's see, 2 months. I was there in Canada for 2 months.
Mhm.
Yeah, because the immersion program was 5 weeks in total, and then I stayed an additional 4 weeks just to spend time playing more concerts, meeting more people, kind of exploring more of Canada and enjoying the weather and practicing my French that I'd learned.
Did you find what you're looking for?
Yeah, yeah, I really did. I really
It's awesome.
feel that. It was, as a solo artist, exploring those places alone is it's very it's very lonely. But in that place, I never felt alone. I was always like on the cusp of discovering something else that would enter my life and kind of fill that void. And it was really, really beautiful to. My main goal was to spread my grandfather's ashes in Grand Pré, and also to learn enough French to be able to come back home and pray in French, as well as write songs, and only ever get grammatic
Yeah.
corrections, instead of me having to ask, oh, well, how do you say this, how do you say that.
Mm.
I can really find my way in writing now because of the school and because of the practice and because of my experience there.
Yeah, no. There's a song that I've been kind of dabbling with, or just a concept of one that I want to write. It's essentially about the only guy in Louisiana or South Louisiana who can't dance.
That's such a great name.
It's called like a Allons danser. Don't I'm not dancing today or something like that.
Uh-huh.
But I was kind of dabbling with that idea of mostly in English, but then throw in a little bit of French. But at the same time, I didn't want to feel kind of hacky while doing it,
Uh-huh.
and like wanting to hit it at its truest form. So I keep telling myself that I guess the only way to do that is to do something similar to you, maybe not the extent of going all the way to the mother country,
Right.
but to pick up like an Anne Savoy book or something like that and get into it.
Man, Codaphil and everything that they do to learn the French language in Louisiana, especially here, if you're not a part of the music, the Acadian music scene, the Cajun music scene, or if you don't actually go to college and you're not exposed to maybe French classes or something, after high school, they don't tell you anything. Nobody tells you where to find it. And so in the search itself, the work that it takes, it's a little disappointing, to be honest, just because I feel like it should be super easy to access all the time. I understand that it probably takes a lot of money to make that readily available for anyone anytime.
Mm-hmm.
But in wanting to search, you develop this passion to really want to be able to learn. It's like, oh, well, I mean, if I have to go here and have to do that,
you got to really want it.
Yeah, you got to really want it. So I think there's the access for that, especially if you're like to write this song, you can find so many different things, but going through Codaphil and some of the teachers that work for Codaphil, just having conversations with those people, it would happen instantly. They'd really be able to help you out.
So if someone is watching this, or this is clipped on Instagram or TikTok or something, and they're wanting to get a little into Louisiana French, what's a couple of ways that you would suggest people to get into it?
Start with the old people first. I've never been to one, but I hear about all the Cajun tables.
Yeah.
Find people that are going to take their time with you. And some people that I can name right off the bat are Colby Lejeune, Matt Mick, my friend Becca Begno. All of these people they might not be genuinely or like originally Cajun or Acadian, but they have much more Cajun experience within their heart and soul, which is, I think, learning from those people, you will connect and diversify the culture, but also progress it in the right way, because those are the people that I believe are people like them are carrying it on the right way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing, and some of the conversations that I've had with Dr. Barry Onsole on this show.
Oh yeah, Barry's great.
And but like the clips that come from it, where I asked him, what is the original, or kind of the meaning, the original definition of Creole and Cajun, and he's kind of get into it, and then just from the clip, people are just going to see a minute-long clip and then jump to conclusions or whatever. But I just find it so funny that people were like, this guy who like spent his entire career basically helping create the written Louisiana French that we know today by interviewing hundreds and hundreds of native speakers, that this guy was like, these people would be like, nope, wrong. That's not what that means. My grandma taught me differently. But like in that search to, maybe want to learn some of that, more of that culture or whatever, I feel like you're going to have more and more people who aren't lineage of direct lineage from Acadie, but
totally.
But like to your point, it's if the intentions and the passion's there, then
well, you don't have to speak French to be Cajun.
Jordan Thibodeau might push back against that.
Oh yeah, he certainly. I believe he would. I was in Canada. I heard Jordan speak more English than he spoke French.
You heard that, Jordan?
Yeah. And I think it's easier to get your point across in the language that you're most familiar with, of course. But it certainly, when I was up there, that was one thing that I hung my head on a lot, which was, man, I don't feel like I'm really Cajun because I'm not speaking the language. And I had conversations with Acadian people up there, and they were upset that I would ever say such a thing. They were like, you think that because you're not speaking the language, you're less. And that's not true at all. Because, like Jordan said in the podcast, it's all these different things. It's dancing, it's food, it's culture. All those things make up the way of life. It's not just one of those things, And I think if you get stuck on that, then you end up saying, "Ah, well, you know," especially when it comes to language. Language is a very difficult thing. I mean, trying to learn it is very, very hard. But you know, you'll find that roadblock, and then you have no more courage. It'll slow you and make you kind of feel guilty and feel bad about yourself. And you're like, you know what? You know, it's an easier path, just becoming the most American person that I can be, or whatever, you know.
Mhm.
And I think we need to stop that. We really need to progress and come together and capture it all. I can't speak fluently. I can fiddle my way through conversation, but at least I'm really, really trying. And I'm writing a lot more. And when I do have the opportunity to speak and I feel like my brain is going to function well enough that day, then I'm certainly going to give it a shot. But yeah, let's not hang our heads down if we can't just speak the language.
Yeah. Well, it definitely seems as, you know, in this age of the internet where we're more connected across the world than ever before, there seems to be a push or a larger push from people here to want to hold on to some of those things that make us purely unique
Yeah.
here in South Louisiana.
Yeah, but and I think
Yeah, but also we have more of an opportunity to share it.
yeah,
And
right.
to educate people and
Well, I think we're going to get to a place, and I've seen it, you know, especially in this last decade living here and seeing a lot of the older generation that just spoke fluently. My grandparents, they spoke all the time in the house, but they only spoke amongst each other. And they wanted to keep it the novelty to themselves. But guess what? Now they passed, and where's it at? It's stopped with them. So if we hold on to that mindset, it's never going to grow.
right.
And I think we're at a place for a lot of people, a lot of my generation and a lot of younger people, that they don't feel connected to it because it's on such a pedestal and it's out of reach so much that they think of it as just novelty, as just tourism. And it's now they're changing who they are because who they actually are is out of reach for them. And we need to put that back in touch with those people. I'm really trying to make this my new record through the ACA to inspire those listeners. It's strictly bilingual. Sometimes one line's in English, the next line's in French. So I want it to contextualize and allow people to say, "Oh, well, I kind of think I know what he's talking about here," and maybe that will give them the energy to go look up. Oh, well, what does this word mean?
Mhm.
And just by in those little increments, inspiring the language a different way.
So how is it bilingual? Is it like one verse is in French, one verse is in English, or are you recording two different versions of it? Are you
Yeah,
blending?
it switches back. Every song's a little different. Some are all in French.
Mhm.
Some are, like I said, line for line. One, it kind of answer itself. You know, if it's talking about, like, there's a song that I have called Aretsa, which is the lyrics go Aretsa ma petite fille, au faut pas du bras when I leave. So he's talking about, I don't want you to cry when I leave. So what it's like, oh well, if they're just English speakers and they're going to hear the when I leave part and think, oh well, what did he say before that? Why is he leaving? You know, try to maybe encourage like the listening aspect, but also the defining of the language and then looking up and researching what it might be about. And yes, some of the songs are all the verses are in English and then the choruses are in French and just things like that. You know?
Well, kind of moving on, talking more about the music and the music scene and all that. Just from a songwriting perspective, you know, I've recently gotten into some songwriting. Would hope to record some of it officially soon. With any goals of taking it on the road or anything, but just as an artist to see the initial idea get to its fullest form. But I guess recently I've had, you mentioned the word roadblock, but you know, some writer's block recently. What's your advice as far as getting past that, or are you just a little creative energizer bunny?
Oh no, no! I wish I was. I approached a lot of things backwards. You know, I never learned how to play an instrument. I would just kind of pick it up and fiddle around. which was a blessing and a burden. I'm paying for it these days when I'm trying to solo on certain songs. I'm kind of stuck in my old ways. And to search for inspiration and conviction was never a problem for me. I just close my eyes and kind of tap in. But now I'm at a point where, to me, everything kind of sounds the same. So finding inspiration is very difficult. And I think for people that are suffering from reading is like, I always crack myself wide open when it comes to that. That just the transfer of words into your mind is like allowing so many different doors to open. It's allowing all these different vocabulary and then perspectives, and then all of that subconsciously is unblocking all these doors. So I think for me, reading is the biggest thing. Sometimes playing a different instrument. I mean, I've been playing guitar for a little over a decade now, and finding inspiration through it is pretty difficult because I know I'm just going to lean on a lot of the things I already know. I've actually played a lot more bass recently,
Oh, cool.
and banjo. So that's been a lot of fun. I think originally in my heart too, I am a bass player. So I also have recency bias, but I feel like the music I've been writing recently is the best stuff I've been able to put out.
Hell yeah. That's exciting. Excited to start hearing it. Do you ever worry that whenever you pick up a new instrument that you'll snap it because you work out so much?
Never.
Your arms are just too jacked?
Never. I have never thought about it at all.
Just get a little too excited on stage and maybe go to bend a note?
I think that sometimes I do play. I could benefit from.
It's just my insecurity talking from not working out the past couple months.
Well, I convince myself, and I don't know if this is some sort of mind trick that I play on myself, but I convince myself that if I am working out, my voice is actually better because I'm more, my body's more warmed up and fluid, and so all my muscles are a little more relaxed and able to fire. So I think my hobbies have ran hand in hand now, and sometimes others outshine what I'm actually trying to do.
So you're working full time as a musician.
Yep.
And how do you create any sort of continuity or habits, or like you're going to a 9 to 5, or making it your job and not sleeping till 11 o'clock in the morning?
If you tell me, I could really use it. I have pretty terrible habits. I think for me, there's just a bottom line, and it's often, more times than not, Wednesday to Sunday, don't plan a single thing. This is my work week. I know I'm really a night owl too, so my schedule is wacky as hell. Yeah, I will get to a gig at 5, after I finish at 8 and 9 o'clock. Then I'll go to the gym, and my day's kind of really kicking off. I'll go back home. By this time, it's 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. I'll have a little bit of writing, because I write the best and more fluently when it's just completely quiet. There's nobody else around. I like existing in that world. And then I will sleep until, 10, 11 o'clock. And people get pissed off, but they don't understand that their day started at 9 o'clock. Mine started at 1 in the afternoon.
Right.
It's the same thing, except we're just a little bit shifted.
For sure. How many times a week are you gigging on average?
Right now, well, before I left.
Okay.
Before I left, I was gigging 4 days on average. Some days it was 6, some days it was 2. I mean, some weeks it was 2, but right now work's been pretty slow. You disappear for a whole summer, people forget that you exist, which is like a super bummer. But there's always new people. Performing music in the South is the most difficult place in the whole wide world.
Please elaborate.
Because especially in Louisiana and Acadiana, there's an expectation. Music can be there, but the expectation is not about the music. It's about the drinking and the dancing first. And then it's about the socializing. And then it's about the music. So The options for how you can break into those gigs and make those gigs work is you have to be extremely entertaining and extremely adapted to that environment. If you're performing music that doesn't do any of those things, that can't exist in the background and entertain as like a jukebox, or it can't completely grab somebody and make them dance and steal their night away, then you will not be able to play. It's non-existent here. The singer-songwriters. I mean, I remember I went to an Amos Lee concert. I've seen this with Ryan Adams too, Wilco. All these like songwriter-esque, more probably acoustic-driven bands. But Amos Lee said it best. He's like, I've never been so disrespected as a place that I played in the South. I don't know if you remember this, but a couple years ago, Ray LaMontagne had played at the Hyman Center.
Right.
Sold out show. And the entire balcony was rambunctious.
Really?
And people were pissed, absolutely pissed, because now I've gotten to meet Ray, and he's a super humble guy. But what that does is, even for performers like him, just makes you feel, I mean, it makes you feel less than, makes you feel unheard, and then it makes people not want to come back here. It's just the most difficult to play because there's so many expectations that are other than sitting and listening to the music.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying come to my gigs and shut the hell up. That's not at all what I'm saying. There's a time and a place for everything. There's just not a lot of places to do anything other than drink and dance and party.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why people like coming to the South.
Yeah, no, I relate very heavily to a songwriter by the name of Michael McLeod. He basically might be finally retired now, but kind of an older guy, really got famous or well known in the songwriting world around like age 40, if I had to guess, but just hauled home Key West for several years. And he's got this great line in the song called Tourist Town Bar. Where he says, I'm an alcohol-powered jukebox in this tourist town bar.
Wow.
Or I'm tired of playing Jimmy Buffett songs in this tourist town bar. And I often relate to that because you're playing at like a bar or something, and they want live music, but at the same time, they're not. The music is just part of the whole thing. It's
the atmosphere.
It's not the thing. You're literally a jukebox.
And
Freebird.
It's exactly. Gosh, I saw recently, there's a guy that wrote a song called Freebird.
Oh, really?
And it's like talking about that.
Yeah.
It's a really great folk song too. Because he's obviously like complaining, but being like very poetic and sarcastic about the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And since the song's called Freebird, it's like anytime somebody would say that in the crowd, it gets a laugh too.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I think that's another way to kind of deal with things in the South is you have to be adjusted and prepared to have your performance reflect that.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't. There's always a difference between gigs and shows.
Right.
I think I've talked to you about that before, where a gig is when you're hired to be the atmosphere, to be background entertainment, possibly take requests. It's usually going to be between 2 and 4 hours. You're going to get paid a flat rate, whatever that might be. But you're not going to be asked to do anything than this role, this wheel in the cog. And a show is when, usually it's 45 minutes to an hour and a half. You're storytelling and performing your art, promoting your brand, and actually having people engage with their heart instead of, try to drink and waste away a little.
So it might be a chicken and the egg scenario, but, first off, how many venues are really offering that to artists around here?
Well, I think you have to define venue. I think establishments is how I would play it. There are establishments for gigs all the time.
Right.
That can be a coffee shop. That can be a bar that's open till 2:00 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
That could be, it can be pretty much anything.
A Mexican restaurant.
A Mexican restaurant. But as far as shows go, there's no places that promote that promote listening room type events.
Right.
Um,
And I know you've tried to do it in the past, and I've seen other artists like Zach Edwards, I think Miles Meagle with the Good Dudes. I've seen several people around our age trying to create up or get a listening room atmosphere at an establishment, to unfortunately really no avail.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's not necessarily. I don't necessarily put it all on these venues or these establishments, because at the end of the day, they got to make their money.
Yeah.
And if the crowds aren't coming in for that, then they can't pay the artist to do it, and so they got to do.
Well, that's completely correct. You know, it's ingrained in the people to not have that experience. So when we have coached them to not have that experience. Well, just like we've coached the genres to be like a very specific, just Cajun Zydeco centric thing here. All the free concerts and stuff that we promoted through, you know, decades of live music have only been a very specific thing. And so now I'm asking you to come in and pay $10 to $15 and sit down and shut up and not get the experience that you're so accustomed to.
Yeah.
That's really not fair to the customer at all. And the only way that venues and establishments are going to make their money is to keep promoting the same thing that we've been doing for years and years. I don't know how to break that cycle.
Yeah.
I really don't.
Yeah, I wouldn't begin to know either. But yeah, you're right. So much of Cajun and Zydeco is predicated around having a good time dancing, you know? And so people are so used to that. And of course, with all these festivals that are often free to get into, you're not paying for music. And so many people, and we've talked about on ad nauseum on this show about that whole concept. But you know, people will scoff at a cover.
Yeah.
When there's like, wait, I got to pay for music now? Yeah, like, oh, that's what I want to live in Lafayette.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just a bummer. A lot of the places in Acadiana are like that. There's a really great listening room in Baton Rouge, called the Red Dragon Room, which is a super promotional place for exactly what we're talking about. It being a sit down, shut up, experience this artist type vibe. But since it's such a novelty thing, it's very hard to be a part of and very hard to get into, and it's held at such prestige that it's booked up for years and stuff.
Wow.
I mean, we don't have the population, or the scene itself is not connected to the population enough to be able to retrieve those customers. I think if there's any place that could really help benefit that, I think like the college would be a great spot. You know, if there was anybody there that wanted, because I know there's a lot of people in college and a lot of younger people that aren't sitting in their dorms jamming Cajun Zydeco music, you know?
Yeah.
And they're probably playing lo-fi, which I'm closer to lo-fi than I am to anything else, you know, here. So for acoustic, like listening room performances, having those type of people, that clientele come to your shows. However, we need to connect that I think that would be a great way to access and maybe even get the needle moving on.
Yeah, target the audience of people whose opinions are being formed that they're not already set in their ways. You know, they're more open minded, at least of how to approach the world, and not just music and entertainment, but you know what they want to do career wise, family wise, what type of person they want to be.
Yeah.
And I feel like that'd be a great way to start. And then if you create, I mean, I had this argument with sports all the time, and I've been angry at the university and how they've kind of pushed away students or angered students over the years. And because the more you do that, you're not going to give these students a good memories of their time in college. And so there's less likely to come back and support the university when it comes to athletics and come to games and whatnot. And it's the same thing kind of with music, albeit, you know, there's less of like a power structure. It's more up to like have to have some bold venue and a group of artists who are willing to, you know, kind of do that and maybe not make the most money, but it's hard to convince someone to like put their ass on the line.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I
don't think you'll make the most money now. But given as the fact that it's not happening at all, I think there could be an opportunity to make something happen.
Sure, yeah.
And
There's an
see
emptiness
return.
in the market.
Yeah, huge emptiness, and you just got to find those people. You have to be willing to find those people. And yeah, like you said, you have to find them kind of with an undeveloped attachment to whatever is happening now, because there's about 10 groups in Acadiana that are fighting for it's like politics in a way. They're fighting for the highest paying, most lucrative gigs here, and they're all within bands within themselves, and they keep getting those gigs over and over and over again. And those people, and I mean, for that too, for Cajun and Zydeco music, sometimes that's their shows. Their gigs are actually shows for them. So there's a benefit to that, and a return as far as their artistry. But if they're making 90% of the majority of the money that's going into Acadiana, this other 10%, all these other people are just left to the scrums,
It's why so many artists, really talented ones, leave. Go to Nashville or LA or anywhere else.
Yeah, anywhere else. Yeah, I know a lot of people that have gone out to Austin and immediately see genuine success, just because there is something here, but people aren't sharing it, and they aren't sharing it because if they do, that takes food off their table.
Sure.
They'll wait until their tenure is up, and then after 20, 25 years, then it might be yours if you followed the exact suit to get there.
Mm-hmm.
The further we get, though, the smaller that pool becomes, and sooner or later, it's just going to be 2 or 3 premier bands that are just going to be related to Cajun Zydeco art, and from that, it's no longer a lucrative career to be a Cajun Zydeco artist,
Mm-hmm.
And we really have to find a way to expand it.
Yeah, you'll just have one artist representing the entire
Mm-hmm.
genre.
Yeah. That would be truly demoralizing. It would be really sad.
So this is really fascinating to me. Break this down a little bit more of this kind of gatekeeping and these kind of 10, I guess, bands, or is it venue? How?
Yeah. So
extrapolate.
Well, from my experience, over the past years, there's always a group of artists
mm-hmm.
that collaborate amongst each other. These are usually, I would say, there's a Cajun Zydeco genre, like the culturally significant, tourist promoting type genre, and then there's of course the cover band genre. And in each of these groups that are getting these
party bands,
mm-hmm. They're getting these giant bands. They all share members amongst themselves.
Mm.
So in this realm, the Cajun Zydeco place, if you have the best fiddle player, well, that best fiddle player probably has his own lead band. So when he gets a call for a gig, he's not calling somebody from below. He's going to call the person that got him the other gig from the band, from the other night. And then they end up all intermingling with themselves and keeping it amongst themselves, and papatage, which is not sharing. That's unfortunate, because all these people are really struggling to get into that group. Maybe you have a family member. Maybe you're the absolutely most excellent player that they've ever seen before. Rarely, in my experience, are you just a cool person and a good musician and a good artist. That's not how it goes. Even if there was just opportunity for, somebody just to be opening up for these people,
mm-hmm.
that would kind of share the loaf a little and at least get some promotion for art besides these people's selves. But if you share that, it's food off the table. Same thing with the cover genre. All those bands are mixtures within themselves. Like the same bass player learns, the 50-song set list, and then he could play with all these groups until they're too busy. Then they have to find another bass player that does the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, that's where it stands. I think you really have more success in the cover genre business, because you can just learn those songs and show up and be like, I'm a badass, I can do these. And then
boogie shoes, got it.
Yeah, exactly. maybe you have tryouts there, but I, like I said, if you're not sharing, it's slowly getting smaller and smaller. It's not growing anymore.
Well, I do find it. I kind of chuckle sometimes when I look at the lineups at like the Boudin Fest or the Crawfish Fest or the Rice Fest, and it's kind of like a rotating list of the same bands.
Yeah,
you know,
it's totally it. They don't.
It's like, well, is this just the same festival? Do we just changing the food and the location?
Yep. Yeah, that's essentially what is. I mean, that's what's happening because
At the same time, though, someone like a Wayne Tubes has a draw.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's the point. But also because he's been doing this for 30 years and put in that system. So he worked his way to that spot, and now he's not retiring it.
Yeah.
Rightfully so, because he understands the way that this world works.
Cool to see guys that we're friends with, like Gino and Josh, get opportunities with them. And
well, and then the two people that you just named, absolute killers.
Yeah.
You have to be undeniable at what you are capable of. And if you're not undeniable, then you're not going to get granted any opportunity. You have to work yourself into being the absolute best to bust through that ceiling. Or you got to just know somebody and know somebody. It's the same thing as politics.
Well, yeah. Well, which, there's a level of like meritocracy that I do agree with. Like, I don't want someone who is a half-assed player or musician to like have the main slot
absolutely not.
at a festival or something,
Yeah.
You want a good, high quality level of music.
Yeah. And maybe I'm all screwed up because I think that there's other people. I believe that there are actually other people that can hold that spot, but maybe my perspective is way.
But here's the thing: as a performer, you need stage time. You need those reps, and there's only so much little grinding that you can do in your bedroom.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, sure, you can go do the Tex-Mex tour to get your chops up.
Yeah.
But to be on a stage in front of 500 people or 1,000 people, that's such a valuable experience for any performer because the pressure's on.
Yeah. I remember I had talked to Mark a couple years ago. This was in 2019. Mark Broussard, we had opened up for him, and we got him backstage. And when Gino and Josh and I and Kent Beatty, Stratton Doyle, we were all in the Freetown Sound, big funk jam band, which we created that band in general. I made that because there were songs that I was writing, and then I was like, okay, nobody's listening to these because I'm not loud enough. I need to be loud and to grab their attention to make them dance. Like I said, that's like the criteria for booking gigs here. And so we assembled that group and kind of broke through and started getting these opportunities where other people were paying attention. And so I was backstage with Mark, and I was like, man, this is actually kind of starting to happen. It's a lot of fun. But I'm a songwriter at heart. I want to write songs and, sing for crowds. I'd seen that he's done solo tours and stuff like that. And he looks at me and he just says, get the fuck out of here. And I was like, no, there has to be a way. He's like, no, there isn't. You have to leave. He's like, no one will ever care until you leave. And we're talking about Mark Broussard. He's your favorite singer's favorite singer.
Yeah.
He's undeniable. His band is some of the best on the entire planet. And he's telling me that it's not going to happen. My grandfather said, he used to tell me, I was like, I can't do it. And my grandfather would tell me, Kent died before you were born. And so now it's like, okay, I don't want to say I can't do it. So what am I going to have to do to make it all work here? And I think, like I said, that it all goes back to making this bilingual record. Trying to bridge all the gaps, touch all the bases. I'm really, really stubborn, and I'm just giving it my damnedest to make it work.
Well, I'm really excited for that. But I want to talk about some more, I guess, more like positive things.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears for a second. And what are some of your favorite little small towns in Acadiana to play at, or maybe a venue or
oh man, great.
That's
great. Shout out to Cafe Sydney May at Brill Bridge. David has paid my bills. He's also put food in my belly. and he's always greeted me with extreme kindness. That place is probably my favorite spot to play. There's a I'm trying to think of any other little spots.
Like, yeah, and maybe, not just of how they've treated you, but have you found little pockets in Acadiana where you can do your thing, your songwriting and sharing and
Well,
storytelling and
Brobridge was, and Cafe City May was certainly one of those places, because I remember talking to David. I was like, man, you know that I don't do like any of this big cover stuff. Like, I'm not gonna play Boogie Shoes 20 times. I'm not gonna do your country pop radio stuff. And he's like, yeah, I know all that. It's like, I know like your music and what you do, and that's what we want here. So I mean, it certainly becomes a balance. You're not getting it's not your show. You're still entertainment, but you're more respected and represented there as an artist, because it's a lower type of atmosphere where people are dining, and they're there to experience all forms of the art. It doesn't have to be a Cajun Zydeco group. It can be whatever. So I mean, I was really lucky to have met David. I think we met in 2021, and he brought me in.
Yeah, I will say, I come from the wedding party band music scene, and when I started playing by myself, or even in a band I had in college here in Lafayette, I was playing a lot of those same songs and getting to more of the solo stuff. And I was I remember seeing a gig on the calendar and being like, oh, God, I got to do these same songs again. And a couple years ago, I started playing, still covers. Maybe I'll throw in one of my own every now and then, but more songs that I loved.
Yeah.
And I truly found that when I started doing that, audiences were more receptive. I was getting tipped more. I was getting complimented more. I was, not having empty breaks in between songs with at least someone not like applauding or something, which that can get so just grueling whenever you're playing and then like no response in between songs. Even like the background alcohol powered jukebox gigs, but there was truly something to like me even playing still cover songs, but more songs that I loved, and I love singing and I love playing, and that really comes out in a performance. So that's advice I give a lot of guys who are starting out for the first time gigging. It's like, play the songs you love.
Yeah. I would say make an eclectic set list. Try not to stray too far away from what would be appropriate. Like, I'm not going to go play the saddest song ever, even though it's like my favorite song. But I do a lot more B-sides from artists that are all like the rage around this area. I do want to mention is a lot of the standards for this area, just going anywhere else, like the far West Coast or even the Northeast where I was, it's not the same standards there. So having that repertoire is just like, people are like, whoa, this is the coolest music I've ever heard before. So I mean, Acadiana being in a bubble, we're kind of stuck in this echo chamber where we only hear and do the same thing. But escaping this place, it really is super, having this in our back pocket and this place in our back pocket is super beneficial.
Well, let me ask you a couple kind of rapid fire questions, and then do you mind? You brought the guitar. Mind playing a song?
Oh, I could play.
Okay, so we'll kind of knock out a couple of these, and then we'll kind of wrap with that. What do you get when you get a meal with sides, an entree and sides? Are you eating them in a certain order? Or are you mixing them all together?
Oh my God. Well, it has to be, if I'm getting a meal, if I have money to purchase a meal.
or you're cooking dinner. A meal, you're at a family dinner or something.
Okay. I try to eat pretty healthy, so I'm probably separating things.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm probably keeping it separate. Unless it comes to Thanksgiving and, there's turkey and jambalaya and ice. I'm a potato salad in the gumbo dude, but I'm not swirling it around. I'm not mixing it all up. I'm just sharing it a little bite by bite. So, yeah, I'd probably keep it separate.
Okay. What's your favorites? I mean, once again, this is probably a bad question for you because you eat healthy, but gas station to get food at?
Ooh, no. Any place where there's fried chicken.
Okay.
Yeah. Or Hunt's Brothers Pizza.
Right.
My God, I destroy it. Dude, I've eaten so much pizza in New York City, and it's delicious. but give me a good old piece of cardboard, Hudson Brothers pizza, and I will munch that.
That's hilarious. Uh, let's see. How often are you tuning a guitar in between songs?
Never. Absolutely. Man,
You're tuning your voice to your guitar.
Yeah. Until I pull up my harmonica and I'm like, holy hell, I was way out of tune this whole time.
Are you a DI guy, or are you going?
I am a DI guy.
Okay.
I am a DI guy. Yeah, because I move around too much, and I usually use a pretty junky acoustic that takes some proper EQ. So yeah.
Do you dust your crawfish?
Can't eat crawfish. I'm allergic.
You're allergic to crawfish?
Yeah, all shellfish. But
wow.
I have been able to eat shrimp as of the last 2 years.
Now, knowing that you're allergic to shellfish, how do you make the jump into trying?
Well, I have to be at a pretty low point in my life. No,
I'm so hungry.
No, I think just accessibility. Once a year, I try a pinky size of crawfish. See what happens. Like bald crawfish, I'll take about that big. And every year, never fails, that immediately my throat swells up and I get real itchy and it's hard for me to breathe. And I just know, well, maybe next year,
Whenever you got your car for the first time after riding your bike all around town, how quickly did you start avoiding Ambassador Caffrey?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And Johnston?
And Johnston.
Yeah. Well, actually, I would drive it closer to the bike lane as a safe driver. Like I was the shield for people that were ever in the lane.
Because you commiserated with.
I've been hit 50 times on Johnston Street.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I've been rear-ended. I took out somebody's rearview mirror once. People have turned directly into me, just ended up on their hoods.
Do you have a personal injury lawyer on speed dial? My God.
No, I have a broken wrist still, but deal with it.
Battle scars.
Yeah.
Truly. All right. Well, so before we grab the guitar and take a little break to get everything kind of resituated, do you have a song in mind? And if so, can you give us a little backstory?
I wonder if I'll play my banjo potentially.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'll do my banjo and sing in French a little bit.
Perfect.
I just so I can display kind of where I am hoping to take Cajun French music in the future. The song that I'll play Arrête ça, and then I can just show you, kind of demonstrate what I'm trying to do.
Cool. All right, let's set it up. All right, here he is, Dustin Gaspard.
Arrête ça, ma petite fille. Oh, faut pas que tu brailles when I leave. Ma belle femme et ma bébé. Et quand vous en tapez, just think of me. Tout quelque chose va bien, je suis après travailler pour vous. Écoutez votre cœur, écoute les micmacs, va au béchaleur, and that's when I get back. Tracasse-toi pas, ma bébé. Tracasse-toi pas. Just think of me, yes man. Tout quelque chose va bien, je suis après travailler pour vous. Tout quelque chose va bien, je suis après travailler pour vous. Tout quelque chose va bien, je suis après travailler pour vous.
Wow, that was freaking awesome, man.
Thanks.
Definitely just talking to you in between the kind of set change. I like how you said you kind of created your own little tuning there.
The tuning for the banjo. Just because, I mean, you can play those 6-string bantars and they just sound like crap if you just keep them in standard tuning. So I just tried to mimic as closely to a banjo sound and put some doubles in there. That way it kind of rolls a little bit.
Yeah, you can hear it. And just to kind of recap, what was the song about?
Adet Sa is about, it's one of the first songs from the record. The story goes from before exile for my ancestors and then kind of goes through the entire process and then how they ended up here. And it's all from the perspective of my grandmother, but that song particularly is from my grandfather, my ancestral grandfather, Michel Jean Léger. And he's singing to his wife and his daughter on the shore, and he's saying Adet Sa. And Adet Sa is a kind of like a Cajun phrase that you might have heard your grandparents say when you're doing something wrong. They'll say Adet Sa, stop that. And he sees his wife and his daughters crying, and he says Adet Sa, ma petite fille, my little girl, stop crying. Au faut pas que tu brailles when I leave. Like I don't want you to cry anymore when I leave. So that's what the song's about, just him leaving. And he says the chorus is tout quelque chose va bien. Like he's gonna go. Essentially, he's gonna go work for them. Every time he's leaving, he's gonna work for them.
Wow, that's really pretty. You can find Dustin's music on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever, probably YouTube, all the streaming platforms. Where else can people follow you, get in touch with you, all that?
You can go to my website too. That'll have a lot of updated information on what to expect.
And what is that?
That is just DustinGaspardmusic.com. And you'll follow me click that follow button on Spotify. Subscribe to the YouTube. I'm always uploading videos. I do a lot of videos for a series called Yells at Nature, which is just me in absolutely scenic places along my tour where they're like extremely remote and hard to get to spots, but then I just perform a song. So subscribe to YouTube, follow the website, and you'll be able to see kind of updates on tour for next year.
Yeah, man, keep hitting that content because I've seen some of those. They're really cool stuff.
Thanks.
And obviously the landscapes are absolutely beautiful.
Super beautiful. Very lucky.
Yeah, music's really cool as well. And people be on the lookout for your next album.
Avec le coudon. I released a jumble of singles as a EP last week, and the full record will be out sometimes middle of the year next year.
Okay, so you can go check that out. Go support Dustin. Appreciate you coming, shooting the shit with me about the music scene and all that. Thanks. And tell me about some of your adventures.
Thanks for letting me vent.
Absolutely, yeah, open platform, brother. As we end every single episode, you can take a look at your single cam right there. And it could be a word, a phrase, a slogan, could be in French or English, could be advice, could be anything that you want to end this episode with to give to the internet audience at large.
Oh man, I wish I was more prepared for this. Well, yeah, I'll reference the thing my grandfather would tell me, and that's can't died before you were born.
Hey, thanks for tuning into the show. Since you made it this far, might as well give us a like, a follow, a subscribe, whatever you got to do to alert you that there's a new episode out. Look, it helps us grow, and it allows us to give you the content that, well, you deserve. If you want to be a sponsor, if you want to be a guest, if you just want to berate me, hey, all goes to the same place. info@AcadianaCasts.com. Email info@AcadianaCasts.com. And for more locally sourced podcasts, go to AcadianaCasts.com. Bye.